Hey guys, how you doing? Eric at SoCal Cigars here. So yes, you didn't read that wrong. We are going to review the goat sucker. And what the hell is a goat sucker? This is the goat sucker. Let me explain. Years ago, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Moose and Connie, had gone down to a really cool place in the area we live in, Costa Mesa. Well, I don't live in Costa Mesa, but it's near where we all live. And it's a really cool store called High Times. They mostly, well, primarily they sell alcohol is what it is. It's kind of like it's a way pre-Bevmo and Total Wine and all these, specialty shops you see. This place has been around forever, way before any of these chain stores popped up, and they're a fantastic store. So hit it up if you can. Anyway, they do have a walk-in humidor. And so they went there and they saw this Chupacabra and they thought it was kind of a funny name, like I think it's a funny name. And they bought one thinking, well, we'll just try it, even though it sounds kind of stupid. We'll try it. And so they ended up starting to buy these all the time. And so one time they bought me one, said, you've got to try this Chupacabra. And I'm like, really, Chupacabra? I go, what a dumb tchotchke item this sounds like, And to my surprise, very good cigar. So I guess the whole point of this video really is kind of like a don't judge a book by its cover type of deal. Because they look at the Filthy Hooligan that came out, the barber pole that came out for more or less a celebratory cigar for St. Patrick's Day. Well, now that's a staple cigar. It's a fantastic cigar. I mean, it's something where when it comes out every year, people are like grabbing this thing like crazy. Sons of Anarchy, the TV show about the biker gang. They made a cigar after that show, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, so stupid. Next you'll make a lunchbox, right? Well, sure enough, freaking awesome cigar. They were even talking about discontinuing it, and they still make it because of popular demand. It's a great cigar. So don't discount a cigar, because a lot of times the wrapper, how fancy it looks, the packaging, the placement in the store, the ad that they do online, it's all marketing, and it doesn't mean it's a good cigar. You can wrap a turd in glitter and it's still just a turd, no matter how nice it looks. So you really, in the end, the best way to do it is either just give it a shot or get a recommendation. And so that's what I want to do today, is at least recommend to you, hey, try this Chupacabra. So let's start by lighting it. Now, one thing you'll notice is there's a pigtail on the end. Okay, the other side, see how it's what they call a closed foot. And so where normally I tell you to toast the foot, this one you're not going to do that. What they do is they actually they leave the extra leaf at the end and they curl up on there, and that helps with the lighting process. So this cigar, you wouldn't toast the foot like I normally would tell you to do. This one you're just going to actually just start igniting. So, and the cutting, the pigtail is really just decoration. It is kind of cool looking. They're always kind of a cute little gig. But it cuts the same, because in the end that pigtail just goes right in the cutter anyway. So let's go ahead and snip this little sucker. Okay. Alright, so we got her cut. Nice little V action here. Let's get it against the sky. The cigar was a little bit dry. So when it cuts, sometimes you'll get a little tearing and sometimes you get little pieces. That's why oftentimes you'll see people, and like I normally do, if you're not going to share, let's say, your cutter, you normally lick the end first, and that way you kind of keep some of the fragments and pieces and tearing to a minimum when you actually cut it. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's all good. Worst case scenario, you could always cut a guillotine on it and straighten it, and you're still good. But anyway, draw is really good on it. So let's go ahead and get this sucker lit up, and then I'm going to tell you some stuff about this cigar. So remember, on this one, we're not going to toast the foot. We're actually going to ignite it, let this extra tobacco flare up, and give us a good light. And I find, like most cigars, in general, especially with that extra material on the foot, you'll usually do an initial light, and then you're going to probably have to touch it up, which is fine. And I'll say on the onset of this cigar, yeah, I'm just making a mess everywhere. The onset, it tastes a little bitter. when you first light it, which I'm not a big fan of bitter cigars, but I will tell you it mellows out. So let's just let that keep going a little bit here. So there's a little bite to it. It comes across as kind of bitter, but it's really just it's most people I think would see, to me, that's why it's all subjective. To me, when I say bitter, a lot of people would say it tastes peppery and spicy, because I don't like that. So to me, it comes across as being bitter. So I guess you got to always keep that in mind, that it's really up to a lot of the interpretation of the person who's giving you the opinion on the cigar. And then obviously with anything that's called a goat sucker, we're gonna have to do the Mountain Dew thrashed apple. I mean, obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? So let's see how that goes. Let's see if my pairing is on today. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I think it's a 2022. I think it's really a fresh one too. That's even better. Okay, so like usual, I like notes. I don't like to get things wrong for you guys. I want to make sure you're getting the right details and the right everything. So pardon me for looking down a minute, but I'm going to give you the rundown of the cigar, the characteristics of it. I'm going to give you a little blurb that, and I always want to give credit where credit's due. The first part of this I got from Atlantic Cigar Company, who I highly recommend. They're a fantastic cigar online retailer, and they've always done me really well. And they have really good pricing, especially for the Isla del Sol. Remember, I mentioned them before. All right, so that's the downside to it. When you cut a cigar that's just a little on the dry side, you start getting a little bit of the little bits and pieces, which is okay. It stops after enough come out. Anyway, so this is the Esteban Carreras Chupacabra. This one is the Habano Robusto Grande. Country of Oregon, or Oregon, yeah. It's one of those days. Country of origin is Nicaragua. It's a Robusto. It's considered to be medium to full in strength. It's a 5x54. So this is the hand-rolled long filler. The color they call Colorado. Not sure why, but they do. The binder and the filler are both from Nicaragua, and the wrapper is a Nicaraguan Habano wrapper. So yeah, that what I call bitter, other might call peppery and spicy. It's already within, a quarter inch in, it's already mellowing out. So like I said, again, I guess it goes with the theme we're having anyway. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't never, like I've said before, never judge a cigar off the first couple pulls, because when you just light it, you're getting a big hit of that ignition process, and it's never going to be true to how the cigar is going to end up tasting once you start getting into it. So always give it a little time before you start thinking, oh my God, what did I buy? So let's see, Esteban Carreras Chupacabra cigar. It says, this is what the little blurb they wrote on Atlantic's cigar. Let's see. Esteban Carreras Cigars launched a new line in 2012 called the Esteban Carreras Chupacabra. After the creature from Central American folklore that has been scaring young children for generations. For grown-ups, this name now signifies a great medium to full-bodied smoke of 100% Nicaraguan tobaccos. The Esteban Carreras Chupacabra cigars are available in either dark brown Habano, Oscuro, or darker Maduro wrapper. The cigars are rolled with a closed foot and a pigtail head and come packed in 10 or 20 count boxes. Actually, this is different. This was the 2019 Bonanza series of the Chupacabra, and it came in a 12 count, like special edition box. The blend starts off slow, but soon builds in flavor and strength, delivering notes of wood, spice, coffee, chocolate, and good amounts of pepper on the finish. See, I'm getting pepper in the beginning. The Esteban Carreras Chupacabra cigars are a very good smoke at a great price point that won't scare you away despite its name. Yeah, and these aren't all that expensive. If I remember right, this is the smaller, this is the Robusto. We get the bigger one. I think we get one that's like a 60 gauge. It's like more like a Churchill size. It's probably a 60 by 7. And that one, if I recall, over at High Times is around $11 or $12. So this one's probably like in the $7 to $9 range, like retail at a store. Obviously, you can usually get better deals if you buy a box, and then better deal if you buy a box online. You know how that goes. So the construction's good, the burn so far is good, the smoke output's really good, and it's really mellowed out. So I'm saying this is one of those cigars that you really don't want to judge it in the beginning, because it really changes its characteristics. Again, like now I'm about a ½ inch in. It's a much different cigar than it tasted like in the beginning. So for the fun of it, I also looked up Chupacabra, because I know I'd heard about that, and it's loosely translated to goat sucker. And I don't know if you remember, but probably 10, 15 years ago, they used to have all these shows on TV that were like hunting for Bigfoot and about UFOs and all this crap. I remember seeing one of them, it was about the Chupacabra, and I'm like, what the hell's that? And they said it was the mythical creature goat sucker thing, that I guess supposedly it's some little short creature that runs around at night and has red beady eyes, and it's got fangs, and it like would suck the blood out of their goats. And I guess that was, I don't know, maybe just a fun thing to tell kids to scare them, I guess is what it sounded like. But anyway, this is what Wikipedia says about the Chupacabra. Let's see. Put my cigar down here. The wind is a blowing. It says it is literally goat sucker. Spanish chupar, to suck, and cobras, goat, is a legendary creature in the folklore of parts of the Americas, with its first purported sighting reported in Puerto Rico in 1995. So yeah, it's quite a while ago, like I said. The name comes from the animal's reported vampirism. The Chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. Physical descriptions of the creature vary. Some say describing more like a dog-like creature, particularly in the southwest United States, while most others describe it as a reptilian and alien-like in Puerto Rico and Latin America. Some report it as being a heavy creature the size of a small bear, and a row of spines reaching from the neck to the base of the tail. Sightings have been reported in Puerto Rico since the 1970s, and this creature has since been reported as far as north as Maine and as far south as Chile, and even outside the Americas in countries like Russia and the Philippines. All of the reports are anecdotal and have been disregarded as uncorroborated or lacking evidence. Sightings in northern Mexico and the southern United States have been verified as canids afflicted by mange. I wonder if it says canids. I wonder if they mean canines, but it says canids. According to biologists, the wildlife management officials, the Chupacabra is in fact an urban legend. So there you go. So that being said, let's take a suck of this and see let's see if we can taste any goat. Yeah, it really mellowed out, man. That peppery hit, which I hate, that's pretty much gone. It's actually now really smooth and actually pretty creamy. Like you get, I know it always sounds weird, but I always talk about mouthfeel. It's like sometimes smoke feels really bitey and it feels like unpleasant. This is more on the creamy side. This is the side where the smoke sort of like coats the inside of your mouth and it's very mellow. In other words, it gives like a good aftertaste, where some cigars just simply, to me, have a bad aftertaste, where you're like 2 hours later, you're like, God, I can still taste that thing. This isn't like that. This is really good, really, really creamy. I'm going to try to pull some notes out of this thing and see what because it lists a whole list of things that we should be. That's why actually I didn't even look, I only read that when I read it to you, because I don't really tend to like to get someone to say, here, taste a cigar, you're going to taste chocolate and raspberry and strawberry and ice cream, and I would rather try to see what I taste, because it's so subjective. But it did list, let's see what did it list? I've already forgotten. Let's see, it says it delivers notes of wood, spice, coffee, chocolate, and a good amount of pepper on the finish. Okay, so let's see what we get. And I do think I already get that wood part. So ironically, at least compared to the beginning, I'm not getting that peppery note anymore. I am getting that wood. The wood, it's creamy. See, along with woody taste to me, a lot of times comes up like the nutty taste. But this is more of a, because a lot of times I'll either taste like a walnutty or an almondy taste. This doesn't have either. It really is more towards the wood side than the nutty side, I would say. I'm getting like almost like it feels like it tastes like almost like a hardwood, like an oak, it's not like a fruity or light wood. It tastes like a heavier wood. Again, I'm coming up with oak for some reason. So far as the chocolate that it talks about, maybe a hint. Maybe a hint. Maybe that's the nutty part I'm getting, because the cocoa bean actually comes out of like a nut-looking thing. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I would say that if you're getting any kind of a nutty flavor or a cocoa flavor or coffee or the chocolatey flavor, at least for me, it's really, really subtle. Really, what's coming across for me really pronounced is the creaminess of the smoke and that wood. You're definitely getting the wood, that earthy, woody flavor. That's for sure there. What else did it say? Spice, coffee, wood, pepper. So yeah, I'd say the spice I got, and I'm wondering, because they said it at the finish, so I have a feeling that as you're heating it up and as you're drawing through the cigar, it probably starts building up like it usually does towards the end of the cigar. So I have a feeling that spice may come back. I'm curious to see if that's going to do that. But I'd say right now it's really just a creamy, woody, earthy flavor. Maybe a hint of chocolate, but I think the chocolate is really subtle, at least for now. But again, I'm only about an inch into this thing. So I noticed that in your mouth it's fine. Retrohaling through your nose a little bit is fine, but I can tell you, if you let, like I just did right now, if you let any of that smoke get towards the back of your throat, man, it's got a little bite to it. So you got to be careful of that. Really, when you're retrohaling and stuff, make sure you're getting everything out forward, not drawing any into you, because it gets a little bitey at the back of your throat. But again, I guess I may be missing the forest of the trees here. I'm trying to pull these notes out and see what it says that way. But in the end, though, it's a very, very pleasant cigar. The construction is good. The draw is good. Look at its perfect burn. Yeah, it's a really nice draw. It's for being a 54 gauge. Because you got to think, the bigger you, and this is, I should probably do a video on this too, but the bigger the gauge, what happens is it seems to be almost, typically, not always, but like a little bit looser, more gaps for air to come through. So a lot of times as you're getting like 54 to 60, you're getting a little more air to smoke ratio. When you're getting down to the pencil thin cigars, it seems like you're getting a lot more concentrated smoke flavor. So that really can make a big difference in, like if you take the same cigar and you smoke a thinner one and you smoke a really thicker one, you'll notice the difference in flavor will be stronger typically on that thinner cigar. But this one at a 54 gauge is very pleasant. It feels like a really good, almost like a 50-50 mix of air and smoke, which is good, because because if you're spending an hour smoking a cigar, not every hit has to be ultra concentrated and strong. It almost becomes like, that's why I think sometimes people put cigars down after about halfway through, because they're like, all right, I'm already done. I would rather have a little bit of a lighter smoke and enjoy the whole cigar, and let that flavor kind of build rather than getting that really intense flavor every single hit. Hopefully that makes sense. Really good. Well, as you can see, again, if you've been following my channel, again, here we're the new homestead. We got, everything's going well. We go out of the old house. The new house has turned out so far to be fantastic. We're really, really nice. A longer commute, But we actually, my wife and I just talked about this last night, that even though it's a longer commute, we're paying a lot more in gas and we're driving a lot more to get to work and back. By the time we get up here where we are living, because one side, I think I've talked about this, but one whole side of where we live is basically just like the Cleveland National Forest, and it's not like forest, because where we live is more deserty, so it's not like we're seeing a bunch of trees, but it's all just hills covered in, like, you know, brush and stuff. But after a long day and you're working and you come home and you get off the freeway, and because we live pretty far from the freeway, which is great. By the time you're driving through these mountains and you see all the city lights and stuff, it's really, it's panned out to be worth the drive and the expense. Because that was a big factor. We're thinking, you know, in the end, is this going to be worth it, moving this far out from work and adding the expense and the time and all that? And I would argue so far, yeah, it's been totally worth it, and we're really happy that we made that move. So anyway, sorry if that's boring for you, but those that follow me and follow the channel, at least you know that we just made this move, and it was a big deal for us. So anyway, it's all turned out fantastic, and I got a beautiful place to smoke, and there's always a nice breeze to blow the smoke away, so it's really nice. Yeah, so that's really what so there you go. Creeping towards halfway in, that last little puff, I actually did get a little hit of chocolate. So there you go. So I would say that this is definitely not a one-note wonder. This is not one of those, like, it starts the same and ends the same. This clearly is a lot of character to it, because as you can see, started off peppery, then got into that little bit of wood, earthy. The creamy smoke is still consistent, but now then the pepper dropped off, and now it's picking up a little bit of the chocolate. Okay, there you go. So it did. Interesting. So now I'm really curious to see if the pepper hits again, as it stated. Anyway, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to get a little deeper into this thing so you don't have to just sit and hear me ramble. And I will come back and we'll wrap the sucker up and see what we think. Hang on. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. Down past the bands, you can see I took the bands off. And so, surprisingly, like I said, how it listed the peppery note should come towards the end. I had tasted the peppery note in the beginning, which I thought was kind of a burnt taste, but it's actually the peppery, spicy thing I hate. But yes, it did come back around, and like it said at the end, I'm getting that peppery note back. So, arguably, where most of the listings you get in a cigar, where it's detailing out what you should expect, which is always subjective, this one actually hit everything. As we talked about, it said, let's just look at it again. It said wood, spice, coffee, chocolate, and pepper. Well, I have to say in the beginning, like I talked about, you just get that creamy smoke feel. I had that wood, that kind of oaky wood flavor. I did get the spice, and that one hit, I got a little hint of chocolate. But while I was paused, and you guys were off doing whatever the hell you do when I'm pausing, which I don't want to know about, I did start tasting more chocolate, and it did get into that coffee note as well. So, and then now towards the end here, it's getting that spice like it suggested. So, surprisingly enough, this one was actually pretty spot on for what it had listed out. So good for them, Atlantic Cigar Company. You did it. Yeah, and I'd say it is getting peppery, not bitter. Because like we've talked about, the end of the cigar tends to become like the filter of the cigar, and it heats up the tobacco and it changes the flavor. Oftentimes it gets really bitter. This actually really is more of a peppery note, which is more impressive that it's not turning bitter. Because any cigar that tends to have a peppery ending tends to taste really bitter, and this one's not doing it. So that's why I'm saying this is one not to underestimate. You should definitely check one of these things out. It's really good. And again, for the price point, probably for the Robusto, $7 to $9, it's not bad. If you get up to the Gordo, which is the 60 by like 7, it's like a fatter Churchill, you're probably 11 or 12 bucks. It's well worth it. I would definitely check one of these out. Yeah, really getting the spice, which I normally don't like. It's actually fairly pleasant, surprisingly enough. And if you retrohale, which you're going to have to do to get some of these things, you're really going to get all those things we're talking about. So it's pretty impressive in the end. Anyway, that'll do it for this one. I highly recommend it. Definitely go check it out. If you don't have a place like we do around us, like High Times in Costa Mesa, like I talked about, this has become pretty popular. So I think you'll start seeing it if you walk into like your brick and mortar. If not, go online. When I did do a search for it, one of the first ones that came up was Atlantic Cigar. I'm sure that all the other big online retailers have it, but they ship well. They always put in a water pillow when they ship, which is nice, which you can reuse those. And their pricing is usually better. That's the place I have always recommended you get Isla del Sol's, because it's about $20 less a box than anywhere else online. So I would highly recommend going to Atlantic for these as well. But like I always recommend, if you can find one at a brick and mortar, it's better off. That way you can just buy one, so if you don't like them, you're not into it a whole box. Anyway, Eric at SoCal Cigars. Go enjoy a cigar. I'm going to finish this one and enjoy the rest of your day like I'm going to do here, and I will see you on the next video later on.